Mrs. Thatcher, in a recent interview with The Observer, you said that previously, quote, at election time, each party seemed to be competing with the other in promising what we can do for you. I'm not participating in that kind of competition, unquote. How do you reconcile that view with the Conservative manifesto in which cutting taxes is one of the most important things that you are promising to do for people?
But that's not what I'm promising to do for them. That's allowing them to keep more of the results of their own earnings. Hitherto, governments have taken away too much in earnings. They've talked about government expenditure, public expenditure. Governments have no money. It's taxpayers' money. So I am saying to people, you should be allowed to keep more of your own earnings. I think for three reasons, really. First, people feel very, very resentful that if they work hard, too much is taken away in tax. And then, industry won't really keep going unless the people who are highly skilled feel that the skill pays in their net take-home pay, and it doesn't. And the third reason is this: we're not going to get more jobs for young people, genuine jobs, unless we can have more small businesses, more new small businesses, and more small businesses growing. So they too have to have incentives.
Now, in terms of incentives, isn't there a danger, though, that if people in fact keep more of what they're earning, that they'll be more content with their present lot instead of striving, as you want them to do better?
No, I don't think so. I think there are many, many people for whom the main driving force in life is that they want a better deal for their children. They want to do more things for their children. And I think that that is a tremendous incentive, and they will go on and earn more for a better life for them. After all, don't forget, a lot of our people now go overseas. They see how our European neighbors live. They see that job for job they have a very much higher standard of living. And they don't like the idea, quite rightly they don't like the idea, that Britain's falling behind, and Britain is declining compared to our competitors.
It's been assumed, it's been reckoned, that to make a real impact, the cuts that you have in mind would include reducing the top rate of tax from 83% to around 65%, taking around 3p off the standard rate, raising thresholds generally. Is that roughly what it means?
The precise calculations I cannot give you, and I think we shouldn't get into the state when you think threepence off here means so much loss to the exchequer. One of the purposes of reducing tax on the pay packet is to persuade people to earn more, so that they have more pounds, and by taking less out of more pounds, you can still sometimes get the extra yield. For example, on the top rate, I don't think we shall lose in yield at all. I think it will bring back some people to this country who've gone away, and they will provide quite a driving force, a new driving force for British industry. So you mustn't ever, if I might say so, look at the British economy as if we produce a fixed amount and no more. The object of this is to start to grow again. I hope it will succeed. We can put the ball at people's feet. Some of them will kick it.
What about the people below the top rate taxpayers, the people who feel might come back to the country, the majority of the people who would be affected by the standard rate being changed? To what extent are what they're going to get by the reduced standard rate, to what extent is that going to be offset by increase in prices due to VAT increases or whatever, the retail prices?
Well, do you know, Mr. Healy, in his very first budget, put up the cost of living by 3.75%. He also put up tax at the same time by threepence in the pound. He's done it both ways. He's put up the cost of living more than any previous chancellor in history, and he put up tax as well. Now, he put it up from where we left it. We didn't have nearly such a bad record on prices, and we left the standard rate of tax at 30p. The increases in value-added tax will be comparatively small. They will, in fact, enable us to get at people who don't return some of their cash income. You know, the Inland Revenue suggested recently there's something like £8,000 million in what they call the cash economy, not returned for tax. Well, the only way we can get at that is by putting a little more on spending taxes, but the object still is to increase the amount we produce. And if you've got the money in your pocket, you can choose whether you spend it on things which attract value-added tax or not. And the main necessities don't.
You say a little on value-added tax, and you also say that you can't give the figures on the standard rate of income tax reduction. You said indeed before now that you haven't looked at the books yet. If you haven't looked at the books, how do you know that you can implement the strategy you have in mind, that you can make the tax cuts you talk of?
Let me give you an example. When one company takes over another one that's been doing very badly, it cannot tell you exactly what economies it's going to make in each department.
Can it tell you that it will be able to make any?
Yes, it can tell you that the strategy of that company has been fundamentally wrong, that it has not been producing the results, and in fact that if it was run differently, it could produce better results. And the reason it has that confidence is because the company that wants to take over the other one has performed better. If you look at our performance, which is all I'm asking you to do, you will find that we performed very much better in office on tax. We were very much more successful on keeping down inflation. So it's that which gives us the confidence for the future.
However you effect the redistribution, isn't it bound to penalise the less well-off in our society? Not just the pensioners, there's been talk of pensioners, but low-level wage earners who don't go over the thresholds which will qualify for tax, but will be affected by retail price increases.
But you know, we were the first party to help those by giving them a family income supplement. Now that was one thing that Keith Joseph did. You hear a tremendous lot about Keith. People forget that he was one of the best ministers of social services this country's ever had.
But that's one kind of public spending.
Yes, but one moment, yes, but in it, it's selective. The point is it's selective. It goes to those people who need it. We always thought it was very much better for people on low wages to have the dignity of their pay packet, their own pay packet, and to have a family income supplement so they could be looked after. Now, most people on low wages spend most of their money on necessities, and necessities just don't attract VAT. There's no value-added tax on food, there's no value-added tax on fuel, no value-added tax on public transport,
what about
none
people
on housing,
to furnish their house?
Well, none on no value-added tax on children's clothes or children's shoes, and the vast majority of their income, if it's a low income, will in fact be spent on those. Furnishing your house, yes, that does have some value-added tax on it. I don't shy away from saying you have to get the tax from somewhere. But after all, it's better to give the person the choice on what they spend it on than to take it away from them and give them no choice at all. And you know, furnishing your house doesn't come very often in your lifetime. You redo it now and then, but it's not your weekly expenditure. It's that which is so expensive.
What about being able to have a house or a home? And here again you talk about choice. You want to give people the choice to buy council houses in which they live in on rent. Again, if this is made of if it's availed of by people, and they may well not respond to the opportunity, isn't it bound to decrease the stock of rented accommodation, which is desperately and urgently needed throughout the country?
Well, now just let me take 2 points. Do you know there are, I think, more boarded up, empty houses at the moment than there are homeless people? And there are more empty properties because people daren't rent them because of the effect of some of the rent restriction acts. They daren't rent them because of the difficulty of getting out a very unsatisfactory tenant. This is a thing that we must think about. There's no question of taking off rent control or fair rents or security of tenure, but there are a lot of empty properties boarded up. There are a lot of empty flats because the landlords daren't let them. But the second point is this: the people who are going to be offered the council houses at very favourable prices are those who are in them. They're going to stay in them. They're not people who are going to move and vacate that flat and leave it open for other people. They're going to occupy it. They might just as well have the chance to buy it when they're comparatively young, and then they'll know that after 25 years or so they won't have to pay any more rent, and it helps the local authority. They get more money back. That means it helps them to keep the rent down of other properties. It's valuable all round.
How does a local authority bridge the gap between what it gets for a house, which in fact is, let's say, 20 years